Welcome to another episode, Dr. James Beckett Sports Card Insight here with Dave Sliepka. As you can see from the title of the episode, we're going to talk about sweetness. We're going to talk about Walter Payton, a player who was more than just an outstanding player, but perhaps Dave's favorite football player. Certainly, again, many people's favorite player. However, deceased. This isn't a tribute episode as much as it's a look at Walter Payton's cards and perhaps autographs, memorabilia, other stuff, but mainly cards. Thanks to our sponsors, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Panini, Topps, and Upper Deck. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Jim.
Why do you like Walter Payton so much, aside from being from Chicago?
Well, that's a big part of it.
And being there during his heyday.
That's the hugest part of it. Being, having him come in the league when I was around 10 years old. I mean, that's the wheelhouse. Most people's heroes are from their ages of 9 to 12. Yeah. So that was a perfect hit for me. And my dad being a big Bears fan and myself being a big Bears fan. And the other part of it, him being such a good human, such a good teammate, such a good guy. You hear the stories about it from the very beginning to his final days. It's hard to hear anything negative about Walter off the field.
He played in the football, but he also played in the band and he sang in the choir.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of guy he was. Well-rounded and a gentleman. And an exemplary. He's got an award named after him now.
An incredible athlete. I mean, people think they rank him in the top running backs, which is fine, but I think he's underrated in what an incredible athlete he was. I mean, people may forget some of the times that he started at quarterback or that he rolled out and threw passes. There were games that he had more touchdown passes than the quarterback did. His arm was unbelievable. I believe he even punted.
Partly a statement of the poor quarterbacking in some of those years.
No question. But his arm.
And he punted. Yeah,
yes,
amazing. Yeah.
And kick returns early. No
was
doubt.
He the first running back that was a hurdler? That really that is known for kind of hurdling guys. I don't remember that many before him. He would, Zeke Elliott does that now some, but it's. I mean, Walter Payton did that.
May very well be.
Somebody go low and he'd hurdle him.
And not just that, I think he's also the innovator of vaulting over the goal line. Yeah. Jumping over the pile, landing directly on his head. Right. I mean, he would clear linemen and go untouched. I mean, think about that jumping ability. That's just incredible.
And he was a stiff arm guy that kind of brought back the stiff arm, which
he never ran out of bounds.
He was a tough guy.
Never ran out of bounds. Always wanted to deliver the hit.
So where were you in 1976? Were you buying up all the 76 Topps you could find?
Well, I can proudly say that I was a Walter Payton collector from the beginning, but I was never a Walter Payton investor. Okay. So I fortunately had some Walter Payton rookies that survived from my original collection. And as I've mentioned in another podcast, my mom did not throw away my cards. So I had a few. But not, I always bought Paytons for myself and not to hoard in quantity.
Right. And so, do you keep a want list for Walter Payton stuff, or do you just kind of, what is the state of your Payton collection at this point?
Well, one of the great things about collecting guys that played in the 80s and were done before the multi-card companies of the 90s is that as the cards came out, I was able to be a quote unquote master collector. So I was able to have just about all his cards, sometimes including the oddballs, as they were being released. So it was collecting Payton is very different for me than a lot of the other guys that I continue to pursue. I almost consider my Payton collection as quote unquote done because
you only want the cards when he was playing.
Pretty much, and anything that I would add.
The newer stuff would be really expensive.
Right, it is very expensive, and it's retrospective stuff. And if I see a unique photo on a card that I've not seen before, I see something. I do add some of the current. Panini issues, and I have a certified insert, multiple certified insert autos, and multiple game jersey cards. But I'm not after trying to get all of them. It just wouldn't be affordable. So with Payton, I consider it kind of a almost a near complete collection for where I want.
Do you think that's the way player collectors do it? I mean, I think they do make a distinction between cards that were issued when the player played, as opposed to the more recent for somebody that's been retired or in his case deceased for 20 years, probably now. About, right?
Almost, yeah.
So, because you get pretty overwhelmed with the stuff that just comes out in the last few years.
Right. If you have multiple PCs, multiple players that you collect, it can get really expensive. And I think you do need to collect different players in different ways. And I hope people have learned to do that, because if you feel like everything has to be a master collection, it can be nothing but frustrating. Mm-hmm. So, I don't collect all players this way. lesser players that I collect, I want to go master because they're more affordable. But with Payton, I think it would just be frustrating and cost prohibitive to try and do that.
Do you get a lot of them graded, or are you selective on that?
I probably don't have a graded Payton, even though I have a couple rookies.
Okay.
I actually,
what about autographed? Have you ever picked up any personally autographed that you'd have to like send to Beckett Authentication, or your buddy Steve Grad, my buddy too? But,
yes.
To what extent are there Payton autographs out there that are? Was he a very willing signer?
I used to mail to him, and he would sign through the mail.
So where are those cards now?
Actually, a couple of those are slabbed.
Okay.
I did have a few of those. I think I have sold one or two of those. I had some 8x10s. A lot of times, if you would send a card, he'd send an 8x10 with it. So, I have multi-autograph stuff. I have an autograph poster that was issued from his company. So a lot of times, or later in his life, he issued some things with his own hologram. And those I never saw the need for authentication, but the stuff that came through the mail, those are the things that I have checked for authentication.
What would be a Payton card or collectible that you don't have that you'd want if you could get it at a good price?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Or trade something for it.
The Slim Jim discs.
Oh, okay.
That's one I'm missing. During the time of its issue, I don't think I knew it existed.
Right.
I don't think maybe until I came to work at Beckett years later that I even knew that it existed. So that is a very tough one in any condition at any price. And so that'd be a tough one.
Is that 78? Or is it, what year is it? 70?
I believe so. 77 or 78. And I think those are the years.
It's not rookie, but it's close. Yeah.
Those are the years that I think have what I think are his quote unquote coolest, or to me, most desirable cards, or some of my favorites.
First 2 or 3 years.
Yes. Yeah. And what I would put on that list would be the 77 Mexican version of Topps. Very tough in any condition. The 78 Wholesome.
Yeah.
And what I really love about that one, it's one of the few cards where you could see him pictured wearing number 21, which would have been his rookie camp number. Another one of my favorites is I think they call it the Stop and Go 3D card. It's like like a Kellogg's type.
79 or 80?
That is also 79. Yeah. So it seemed like each year in those late 70s, there's one really tough or really cool, neat card that came out that was non-standard, and I always enjoyed chasing those or adding those to my collection.
What about the irregular size ones? Like some of the discs and there's a Coke panel kind of thing.
There are multiple oddball size items that are really cool. What was called the SI mini posters.
Yeah.
I can't remember what's the other name for that. I'm drawing a blank on that, but I also love the Fleer. The Fleer.
They don't identify them by name. Right. The Fleer Team in Action cards.
Right. I think those are really undervalued.
Well, they're probably undervalued from the 70s for sure. By the 80s, I think they were pretty heavily produced.
But I always look for ones that had him in it. Those were not the oversized per se, but some of the other neat stuff is like the box bottoms from the 85, 86, 87.
Well, those were glory years for the Bears.
Yes. And most people didn't really care or see that the box bottom was a different card or a different color or something like that. So those were real neat. But you're right. The Coca-Cola discs, there were multiple years on that. They have the hang tags that were
I've got one of those.
Yeah. So there's a lot of neat oddball stuff.
Yeah.
That was out there. SI for Kids cards and if you're a Payton collector, there's a lot of neat stuff from his playing era, and obviously even after them. There's multiple retrospective sets that I really like. Upper Deck did their typical Heroes 10 card set.
Do you have a guess of how many different Walter Payton cards are there out there?
I don't.
I have a guess. 2,357 or something like that.
Is that the number?
I just went back at Online Price Guide and looked, and I think I'm remembering that right. But again, 80% of that has to be after he retired. Not 80%, but there's so many variations of some of the
cards. It could be more than 80%. It really could.
But he played until 97 or
88. He played until 88.
Oh, 88, right. And then he passed away in 99. 98, 99?
Yes, 98.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, who's his most similar player? I mean, would you compare him to Emmitt Smith? Would you compare him to Barry Sanders, who came along after? Or is he just in a class by himself, in your opinion?
On the field or in cardboard?
A little bit of both, but I mean, on the field, there's other guys that have had more longevity, but he had sustained excellence for a long time. And again, it's comparing in cardboard world, it's just the explosion is crazy. He had one rookie card, one indisputable rookie card, not a whole bunch of them. Who's your second favorite football player? If Payton is your favorite, is there anybody else, or that era, or?
Well, it'd probably be another Bear, probably Urlacher.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe even Ditka. I have a
Okay.
decent Ditka collection.
Yeah, I saw Ditka play in college.
Wow.
When he was at Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And I just remember him catching this pass kind of in the middle of the field, and just people were trying to tackle him. He was just like knocking him off. It's probably available, on YouTube. It was the Panthers against somebody. I don't remember who it was now, but he just was a man among boys. They were bouncing off him, and he wasn't fast. He just kind of lumbered into the end zone and snarled, I suppose. So must have been amazing being in Chicago in those glory years when everything came together.
I kind of mostly compare him to Barry Sanders in that neither of them had a really good offensive line, and a lot of times they had to make the play themselves.
Right.
So a lot of their highlight reel stuff,
Well, I think that's
involves open field, breaking, not even breaking tackles, but avoiding tackles in a special way. And Emmett is a special player, but so many of his runs, you look and he's 2 steps and he's past the line already. And a lot of times Payton would have to take 10 or 20 strides before he ever got to the line.
Barry Sanders would go around in a circle and then come back around.
Exactly. So from their styles, I prefer the Barry comparison.
Well, Emmett, I think, had such amazing vision to see the hole.
Yes.
So it's not just running through the hole. I think he had amazing vision. And again, all those guys, there's also a skill to stay pretty much injury free and to not take the big hits. And Walter, Emmett and Barry, all those. Okay. So Walter Payton, he's got an award named after him. The Walter Payton Man of the Year, or whatever. It's one of the most prestigious. In fact, I think I did another episode about Clemente. There's a Roberto Clemente Award in baseball. But the Payton Award is for community service or just being,
correct. Community service.
It's mainly community service is the expression.
Off the field. Yeah.
Off the field. But still guys that are generally good players. And
it's gone to people.
Jason Witten's one, right?
Witten, Drew Brees.
And Drew Brees. Yeah. So those are well deserved too. In fact, those are, Dave and I, we're coming to a close here, but Dave and I think agree that it's wonderful to appreciate the skill of a player on the field, but when they're equally outstanding off the field, that's even better. Because I don't want to emulate just some on-field activities. I want to see that somebody's given back to the community and is a great human being, which by all accounts Walter Payton was. So our hats off to him.
You summarized that perfectly, and I can't say that any better, being that my firstborn son's name is Payton.
There you go.
Payton.
Okay.
And I had the honor of having him meet Jared and tell him that story.
Goodness.
Jared Payton.
What an amazing way to end this episode. Thank you, Dave. And we'll again, this has been so much fun. We'll do another episode in a few days. So again, thanks, Dave. Thanks, listeners. Hope you enjoyed our reminiscences about Walter Payton and his cards. And we'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks.